One might wonder, why would any of us who works hard all day long fight our way through traffic just for the privilege of sitting in a car in a drive-thru to pay for bad food? Not on this show. You've just walked into The Man's Kitchen. Today on The Man's Kitchen, we're making succulent beef tips with gravy. To do that, you have to start with the most lean beef possible. Come join us. Hello and welcome to The Man's Kitchen. Today we're going to do some sauteed beef tips. Now if you never had sauteed beef tips, you're really going to have a good treat. You have to start with about 2 pounds of beef tips. We're going to use beef tips. We're going to use about a whole onion diced. We're going to use a yellow pepper. We're going to use for seasoning a combination of garlic and onion powder. A little bit of balsamic vinegar. A little bit of soy sauce. And it's going to be stewed in beef broth. So after we do all the cooking, we're going to let that go ahead and simmer almost an hour. See, beef tips are something that you want to do over a period of time slowly. So we're using like a paring knife, and I'm going to take the center out of there. If you watched the show before, I told you that you have to cut it out just like you do with a pumpkin on Halloween. So we go around at an angle, just like that. It falls right out. See? Not a problem. All the seeds come out with it. So there we have it. Now, with the butter knife serrated edges at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and make slices of that. So you don't need it real big. One thing about this sauteed beef tips is that they are going to liquefy everything that you cook with it. So no matter whether it's the onions, no matter whether it's the green pepper, all that stuff is going to be reduced in size. Now, what we don't want to do is we don't need any large pieces of this pepper or onion in there. So that's the reason why I diced up the onion. And the same thing is going to be for the pepper. These vegetables will be sauteed first to give them some color and some flavor. Because if we just put them in with the beef, with the broth, we're just going to have a whole soup. And we don't want really soup, we want some good beef. Okay? Alright, so those are pretty much chopped up. Just where I want them. You don't have to come up into the sawdust, but you do want a good chop on there. Alright, so that will do. Something nice and hearty. Alright, so now the very next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and saute both of these. We want to saute the peppers and the onions together. So I've got about 2 tablespoons of oil in this particular pan right here. We wait till it comes up to temperature and then successfully go ahead and saute those vegetables. Now remember, I always say you don't want to go out to a place like a fast food. McDonald's, Burger King, I don't care what it is. Those places get that food from a factory to a tractor trailer. Then 13 people touch that food before you put it in your mouth. So the love has gone out of that food is what I'm trying to say. Not that it's bad, just that there's no love in it. Alright, so that's about up to temperature. We'll start with the onions first. And then the green peppers. Okay, also, that's the garlic and onion powder combined there. We have about a teaspoon of salt, and that's sea salt, and about a teaspoon and a half of pre-ground pepper. And we have about 4 tablespoons of flour, just ordinary flour, and that's what we're going to coat that beef with, and it's going to help the beef brown and create a stock once we put it with the beef broth. Okay, so while I'm waiting on those vegetables, I'll go ahead and open a can of beef broth. And Swanson's is a good variety. Been around forever and a day. Your grandmother would have used it. Go ahead and open that up. sort of be prepared when you cook. The last minute deal is like life. It's just not good. All right, so there's nothing in that can but beef broth. We've got the soy sauce. That is open and ready. We've got the balsamic vinegar. That's ready. We don't need that anymore. All right, so I'll go ahead and start to stir in these vegetables so they can brown. Now that I just turned on high, what we can do is, since this is going to go ahead and marinate together, we can take that pepper and start to sprinkle that on those vegetables. We can put the salt on there, because all that's going to cook together more like a stew. So it won't matter if you did it now or you did it over the meat. It's all going to go together anyway. Okay, so we'll let that do its thing for a little bit. When it comes to the beef, we'll make sure that we keep turning. Now, the onions, I can let them go ahead and go by themselves. And you want to brown them a little bit, but you don't want to disintegrate them because they're going to cook longer in that particular stew. But make sure you get a good beef quality. Don't get anything cheap. Don't have a high fat content, because fat is normally where you get like the gristle and you're chewing on it, you can't taste it well. So you want to get a good percentage. All right, those are doing real good, if you can see that. They're doing very good. We can get the flour ready. I can actually start to coat the beef now before I get it in there. And that'll absorb into that beef. Just kind of mix it together there. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll cook that. And when it's ready, we'll come back inside the studio that we use every day to broadcast, and we'll finish up there.
You're watching MNN, the men's channel.
So the first part is start here in the kitchen, and then the last part will be in the studio, which is next to it. Okay, so you see I separated those. You may not have to, but this is a smaller working surface. And you make sure that none of the beef is stuck together or frozen. Because what we're going to do next is we want to brown that a little bit. Okay? We're going to brown that beef is the main thing we want to do. To give it a flavor, so when you cook it in that stew fashion, then it's not just gray. You want it brown like gray. Okay, so that is where I want it right there, okay? You don't need it any more than that. All right, so we remove those from the pan. And now, we can return that pan back to the fire. We'll add just a little bit more oil in that. And we'll go ahead and put the beef tips into brown. So you want to put them in all at the same time. Don't pile on top of each other. you go ahead and take these gloves off now. Here we go. Like I say, you want to make sure that you stir it around. We want to brown it. You don't want to burn it. The browning is going to add some flavor, and that's about a medium high on that. But the browning is going to add flavor. Remember, when you cook, this is not a cookout, it's not a burnout, so you're not trying to kill the meat, it's already dead. Alright, so remember, keep it moving, keep it moving. Flip it, whatever you have to do, rub it down. And that's browning real nicely. This like dish doesn't take long at all. This beef here is enough to feed approximately 4 people. If nobody's greedy, 6 people. Okay. So we've got the onions and the yellow pepper. We're about to prepare the balsamic vinegar. We mix all this stuff together. A little bit of the soy sauce, a can of broth, and then we cover it with a lid and we let it stew for approximately 1 hour. Checking on it, we're looking for a certain gravy consistency, like a thickness. We don't want it too thick and we don't want it runny. Now, on top of that, we're going to have, we've already prepared some mashed potatoes. Thanks to the crew, I don't do this stuff by myself. So those mashed potatoes will go as a bed for those beef tips and gravy. The one thing what happens when you add flour with a beef like this is you help it make a roux. So if we just put that can of broth in there without the flour, we will have a soup. But because there's flour on those beef tips, it's going to make a roux. Okay, like I said, that's browning very nicely. Okay, so we got the lid down here. The lid is ready. You ever just get something and like, I don't want to burn it, so I'm going to keep turning it. This is not like that. It can get burned. Okay, see, that's about the consistency that you want right there. Just gonna let it go 1 more minute. Just 1 minute. Won't hurt. Because we want some flavor in that beef before we add the rest of it. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is prepare in advance. You can always mix seasons together. Let's do it. So let's do about a tablespoon of that balsamic vinegar. We'll add to that about half of that, the soy sauce. And beyond that, it'll just be the beef broth. So right now I can add back the onions and the yellow pepper. That looks nice. Okay, on top of that, I can go ahead and add those 2 ingredients. There's the flavor right there. There's the flavor. Okay. Like that. Now the last step will be the beef broth, and that would allow it to go, like I said, an hour. As it goes over an hour, a lot of beef broth would have dissipated. What didn't dissipate will go into the meat, and then we'll tenderize that meat over that time period. Oh, that really looks good right there. If you just wanted to have a stir fry, you could have it. Okay. But this is not a stir fry. So what we're going to do is we go ahead and add the beef broth. Just about the whole can. Here we got the whole can. And we'll bring it to a boil. And once that's a boil, we'll turn it down to about a medium low. And we'll let it run for 45 minutes to an hour. Just keep checking back on it. Make sure that it's getting up to a thickening roux. That you have a little bit of sauce left, not a bunch, because we're not trying to make Campbell's soup. Okay, she's bubbling pretty good. So we can go ahead and cover it now. The one thing about it, when you cover it, you're not trying to steam it because you make the meat chewy. So you want to partially leave it open to let it breathe, okay? So we go ahead and lower it now to a medium low. Let that come back in about an hour. Like I said before, we'll be in the studio and I'll have the pan there. We'll have the mashed potatoes on the plates and we'll get ready to eat. Too bad you can't smell it. But through the magic of television, we'll be back in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for watching.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to the Man's Kitchen. Now the time has elapsed. It's all came to fruition. This food is ready to eat. So, we'll take the lid off. Look at the steam on it. That's good. Beef tips. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Beef tips. See how it formed a roux? Look at that. Oh, yeah. Now, so, today we're going to have some mashed potatoes with the skins on. So we could have regular mashed potatoes. You could have had rice. It's up to you. Whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to stack that in the middle first. Just like that, I imagine. Now to that we'll take some of that beef tips. Lay it right over the top. Just like that. Then we'll take the caveman tools of the fork. And we'll see how it tastes. So we're going to taste some of that beef tips. We're going to taste some of that yellow pepper at the same time. All those flavors in there. Telling you. There's no fast food facility on this planet that could ever beat what you could make at home. Like you've seen it, it wasn't hard. Took the beef tips, already pre-cut, sliced the onions, sliced the yellow pepper, a little seasoning to it, beef broth, soy sauce. You were there. Do it today, make it happen. Stop paying those fast food places all your money. We'll see you next time on The Man's Kitchen. Happy eating.
And remember, food was made for love, to be shared with those that you love. We'll see you next time on The Man's Kitchen.